Hey guys, I'm John from TwoBros RC, and this is the Precision Aerobatics Addiction version 3. PA is local to me here in North Carolina, so I've been working with them recently to demo their products. Addiction is a balsa ARF kit, which means it's going to take a little bit of technical know-how and some work to build. It's not insurmountable, but you'll want to plan on building it over the course of a day or two. I would personally recommend the iPAs kit, which is what I'm using here, which comes with pretty much everything you need, except for the spinner. Now I can't tell you why Precision Aerobatics doesn't include it, but it really should come with the spinner. Fortunately, it's only like $40 total with the shipping, so you might as well add it on too. I'm using max throws on everything with 50% expo on all surfaces, which makes for a really responsive airframe. You might want to consider going with 70% if you're newer to 3D flying, or if you just want to tamp down the responsiveness a little bit. Use what works for you. Don't let someone bully you into thinking that expo is bad. As far as center of gravity goes, my PA3S battery sits right here, which gives a very neutral center of gravity bordering on the tail heavy side of things. This makes it pretty responsive and very snappy. You might want to consider moving your battery a little further forward if you're kind of new though. There's enough space to work with to do so, and it'll help keep it from being too uncontrollable. I'm also running on an AR637T spektrum receiver with 2x gyro gains, 15 roll, 25 pitch, and 10 yaw to help keep stability in wind. The 637T is mounted on the interior of the fuselage skin to the side of the plane with the antennae dangling freely, and a voltage cable connected to the volt port on the receiver with the red part of the cable spliced into the red ESC lead for voltage telemetry. Takeoff. How does it handle? Pretty well. It takes off easily from manicured grass, pavement, or hand launching it. It's predictable in that it takes a bit longer than you'd think to rotate due to the wheelbase. It basically always takes off in 3-point configuration, but you could try and force a wheel takeoff if you're daring. Just watch out for the propeller, because a prop strike leads to bad things on balsa models. You might also notice that the tail wheel wants to fall off. This can be easily fixed with some heat shrink tubing. I don't think my wheel stopper was affixed right by the factory here, which is no biggie. Sometimes this happens and it's easy to fix. This isn't an extreme acroplane, so let's get that out of the way first and foremost. It's designed for slow, deliberate 3D flying and fast precision 3D. Trying to do extreme 3D will result in the canopy departing mid-flight. My buddy Oliver Willis mentioned that he tapes his down, so that keeps it from popping off for him. But the airframe does fight me anyway when I try to make it do gyroscopic tumbles, so I focused more on flying Addiction the way it was meant to be flown, which is low, slow, and super enjoyable. True to PA's advertising, Harriers are super easy to perform. There isn't really much to it. Hold some throttle, pull the elevator gently, add rudder to steer. If a wing begins to drop, counter it with a tiny amount of aileron. It really doesn't take much input at all. Invert it is slightly trickier since my CG basically makes the plane fly without any elevator input. It does inverted Harrier almost on its own. It's kinda scary. I'm used to pushing the nose up, and when I don't have to, it feels weird. I can always go nose heavier to force it though, but that would come at the expense of overall agility. No thanks. Harriers are one area where this plane shines, and it's not just upright or inverted, but rolling as well. You could actually use Addiction as a 3D trainer if you practice a little higher up so you can manage your anxiety level. It's not a cheap airframe, but you really get what you pay for here. Foam airplanes just don't compare. Knife edge is pretty stable overall. The only thing that I noticed was a momentary hesitation that comes from adding too much rudder too quickly. What you'll want to do is feed rudder into the maneuver gently until you achieve your desired beta slip angle, then steer it with elevator input while you're holding throttle. It's basically foolproof this way. So long as you're deliberate with your stick inputs, you won't see any surprises. Addiction has a very stable design, which unfortunately seems to make the knife edge spin a little less thrilling than I'm used to. Perhaps moving the CG back a little more would help though. Hovering Addiction is pretty easy, though it does have a tendency to enter into a torque roll very quickly on its own. If this bothers you, be prepared to add some right aileron as it begins to spin. Like most planes, you can force a spin by adding left aileron in the hover or while punching out. We've posted how to fly tutorials before, and all of them apply to learning how to fly Addiction, though honestly you might find it so easy to fly that a tutorial would only be needed for basic stick inputs. I've got a lot of experience flying 3D, so flying it with Addiction didn't take much more than the first 15 seconds during the maiden to figure out how it would handle. You might take a little longer, but I doubt it'll take anyone long at all. It's so well designed that the hovering should be one of the first things that you intuitively pick up. Even picking it up out of the sky isn't too difficult, but beware the propeller, because it'll bite. If you want to try this at home, make sure the plane is in a stable hover and then quickly snatch it before it begins to torque roll, and make sure the propeller is pointed away from you. Don't try this if you're not 100% confident. One wrong move and you could be seriously hurt, but damn is it fun. Landing is basically like any 3D plane that you've ever flown. All there is to it is very gentle elevator input while holding enough throttle to maintain a stable approach, then setting it down in 3-point configuration. If you're more daring, you can land in a Harrier, which is really easy on grass with virtually no chance of damaging the covering. However you choose to land, just remember that throttle determines altitude. Add throttle to increase altitude, reduce throttle to sink. Reduce too much and it'll fall. Keep throttle engaged unless you want to land parachute style. So let's talk about some upsides, and the first biggest upside to this plane is the power system. Everything that you're seeing here is on a 3-cell battery. Yes, all of the 3D flying that you're seeing is on 3 cells. For this video, I was flying with 2200 packs and 3000 packs, and these are what I've flown entirely, and all of them handle really well. But this is not a 4-cell plane, and do not add a 4-cell battery, because you'll probably burn up the ESC if you fly it. The 12x5 propeller produces a ton of thrust on this setup, and it's not lacking for power at all. The construction overall too is really nice, with factory fitted LEDs that are insanely bright and make night flying relatively easy. It does fly like it's connected to your brain. There's a whole lot of positives and not a whole lot of negatives, but there's still some negatives. Some downsides are that the narrow body makes it difficult to get the wing screws in without hitting your fingers on the wood, and that narrowness also makes it difficult to place the receiver without interfering with the wing screws, which is why mine is mounted sideways and further back. I personally find that a little bit irritating, but you might not. As you've seen already, the canopy can come off with very aggressive 3D, and the tail wheel might need some reinforcement to keep it from coming off. Of these issues, the canopy is my biggest concern. It might break if it falls on pavement, but it fell on grass every time that it came off for us and it wasn't damaged. Also, it's still possible to get disoriented at night even with the lights, so be careful when doing advanced maneuvering so that you don't wreck. The TwoBros Score is a solid 9 out of 10. The tail wheel and canopy popping off are two issues that each subtract half a point for a full point off. But the 9 out of 10 is still really good, so it's safe to say that I love Addiction. Precision Aerobatics makes some fantastic 3D aircraft, and it's really great to be able to work with them to demonstrate what they can do for you. Let us know what you think in the comments, and be sure to join us on Discord via the server invite in the description. See you guys next time!